So.
Sound check, 1, 2, 3, sound check.
Welcome to the Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation Annual Shareholder Meeting. This meeting starts on June the 24th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. And please note that quorum is present. Sorry. I'm okay. Approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to this agenda?
No, there are not, Madam Chair.
All right, may I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented? Councillor McMeekin, Councillor Spatafora, any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, but I think that Councillor Nan's already saying yes, so. All right, may I have the vote, please? Vote is up. That vote carries 11-0. Thank you. Moving on to number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to approval of minutes of the previous meeting, and that was on June 8th, 2024. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes, please? Councillor Kassar.
My apologies. So I made an error in the chair's procedures. So Councillor Wang is reading out what I wrote, but it is 2023. My apologies.
2023. Okay, excellent. Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Kassar and Councillor Taddison, please. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, may I have the vote, please? Councillor Nancy, yes, and the vote is up. Yes. That vote carries 11-0. Thank you. Moving on to communications, 4.1 is the correspondence from Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation respecting Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation Executive Overview 2024. May I have a mover and a seconder on the communications, please? Councillor Pauls and Councillor Taddison. Any discussion on this document? Seeing none, may I have the vote, please? Vote is up. Councillor Nan's a yes. Councillor Taddison's a yes. And that vote carries 11-0. Thank you. Moving on to presentations. I'd like to call upon Jeffrey Cowan, President of the and CEO of HACO, and Lori Tugman, Chairman of the Board, to provide a presentation for item 5.1. Anytime you're ready, gentlemen.
Thank you. I'm Lori Tugman, Chair of the Board. I just wanted to recognize our directors, which includes Greg McCamus, Anna Ventresca, Julia Camula, Elizabeth Donato, Tony Tama, and Councillor Wang. I'm going to turn it over to our CEO, Jeffrey Cowan, to do the presentation. Thank you.
Well, hello, and through the chair, good morning, Madam Deputy Mayor, councillors, city staff and presence, and for those in attendance. It's great to be here at this year's, have the opportunity to speak at this year's annual general meeting. You know, this is a tremendously exciting time for an organization like HCE. And we principally operate within the city of Hamilton. We call Hamilton home. And, you know, we are guided by the leadership and passion that exists throughout this community. There are two key themes that really drive us and give us purpose. And one of them is that our community is transforming. more rapidly than I have ever encountered. And not just Hamilton, but the communities that surround us. And as a part of that transformation, there are also other factors, such as addressing the impacts of climate change, and as well the massive rate of digitization and the adoption of internet and digital technologies that are happening in our community. And these breed some challenges, but they also give rise to many opportunities. And it's within these opportunities that an organization like HCE finds purpose, and this is where we find and are wholly promoting what we believe to be Hamilton's advantage, which is what we are going to discuss through the remainder of this presentation. HCE, we are an integrated utility provider. We make investments in energy infrastructure and telecommunication infrastructure. We own, we construct, and we operate within our community and within the surrounding area. And this type of infrastructure in an entity like HCE is more important as a part of this transformation that our communities are undergoing than there ever has been before. I'll just give you a little example, and we'll talk about last week. It was hot. It was the first heat wave that we've experienced so far this summer, and there's predicted to be more and more and more. Let me talk a little bit about how HCE experienced last week. Our skilled operators at 79 Bay are always watching the weather, and they're looking ahead, and they are going to see a sharp rise dramatically in temperature that's going to sustain itself. So they ready the operations of our downtown energy system that's located kitty corner to the First Ontario Centre and right adjacent to Sir John A. Macdonald High School. It's ahead of a district energy loop. It provides heating to millions of square feet in downtown Hamilton. But it also has a strategic asset that helps the community weather through a peak like we saw last week. So what happens day one? We're seeing the demand on the grid escalate extremely rapidly. What happens day two? Well, on day one, not everybody turns their air conditioner on. And there are reasons for that. Some could be a cost. Some could be that those buildings actually retain coolness from the spring. And so people still have a level of comfort that they make a decision about they're not turning on additional demand. What happens day two? It's unrelenting. It stays. The people who day one didn't turn on that air conditioner, day two now are. And what ends up happening? The grid is going into critical state. You now have demand to the point in time it's outstripping the capability for the electrical system to supply. What happens? We get called upon by the independent electrical system operator, the one that oversees the grid. They see all the generation, they see the transmission, they see the distribution, and they say, Hamilton Community Enterprises, you have to take load off the system. If we don't take load off the system, then what ends up happening? Our community gets impacted, our residents get impacted, our business get impacted. There will be power outages. And so our system at 79 Bay Street has the ability to effectively take about 500 homes worth of demand off of the system. And once upon a time, the benefit of that used to be primarily to reduce electricity costs to the city of Hamilton directly and their utility bills. But more and more and more, the purpose for this type of infrastructure is about building resiliency in our community. It's about helping enable the transformation. And this is principally what I want to discuss on this slide. Where we look in the light blue, this is the power market of today. It's very closed, it's one way, it flows from mass generation to the consumer. What I described about 79 Bay Street in Hamilton's downtown energy system is the example of what we see in the green box. This is the transformation that is going to occur in our power market and in our energy sector. And what 79 Bay Street represents, and it's through historic leadership of this city, and that it's an example of what we refer to as a distributed energy resource. And we're going to see more and more of these evolve and be deployed in our community. More at the residence level, solar is an example of a distributed energy resource. I'm sure there's been many topics that have come before this council talking about battery storage systems. They're an example of a distributed energy resource. These type of technologies are going to come into our community and be key enablers into the energy transition. But more important than ever, it is not just the energy infrastructure solely and discretely by itself. It's all the digitization and it's all the digital and the communications that really become this key enabler. And this is where we see in the combination of our mission and vision is really giving the business purpose about where energy innovation meets digital excellence. And that's why more than ever it makes sense to have a utility like HCE with these core assets and experiences closely intertwined together. Our staff, many of which leadership team is up in the audience today, wake up every single day thinking about how do they enable better outcomes for the residents and businesses in our community and our surrounding area. That is what gives us the purpose. And this is how we go about and think about creating what we see as the Hamilton advantage in enabling and being a leader in this transformation. A little bit of housekeeping. Hamilton Enterprise Holding Corporation made for a very long email address. So from a commercial perspective, we refer to ourselves as Hamilton Community Enterprises, or HCE. So when we transact and we do business in the community, we transact and we do business under the brand of Hamilton Community Enterprises, or HCE. Inside of the holdco are where these subsidiaries exist. And that holding corporation is referred to as Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation, of which the City of Hamilton is 100% shareholder. I like to say we have common purpose. We are very closely aligned to the community. We're very closely aligned to the priorities of this council and the key stakeholders in Hamilton. And we're excited about some of the changes that we're seeing, and the recent changes that we're seeing. And I'll give you one concrete example, is the implementation of a green building standard. Really, it cites people who love building heating, like HCE. It really starts putting the emphasis on better outcomes in the better built environment. And that's an example of something that we've seen now take prominence through this term of council and the leadership, and something that's coming out. We're actively engaged with many city departments, and we're actively engaged with planning. As we see the implementation of the standard coming forward, we want to make sure that it's accretive and it brings value to the downtown energy system, and that the downtown energy system can continue to experience an investment and a renewal cycle as we see the intensification happening throughout our community. I talked about the downtown here a little bit, but the one thing I have to comment, if you see the power market of tomorrow, is what we're talking about has community-wide applicability. There will be opportunities in every ward, in every part of Hamilton, to adopt this power market of tomorrow and look at the emergence of these distributed energy resources. We are an enabler of energy innovation across all of Hamilton and the surrounding areas. That is where our key focus and priority is. And the one thing I have to say is intensification, and the strategies around intensification is what leads to energy innovation. It is what allows us to look at new emerging technologies and approaches and investments to help deal with the demands that our community is facing, some of which Brian at Electra spoke about earlier, and the demand and the investment requirements that are going to happen through the classic utility grid. There are going to be situations whereby we see an opportunity to invest in a complementary infrastructure to reduce the demand on the world of wires. And we see that this ultimately will lead to better outcomes. I'd like to comment that the DeGroote School of Medicine across the street is the example of a better outcome. It is connected to our district energy system. What do you see on the roof of the McMaster building across the street. It's a green roof. It looks like a park space. It's a very collaborative environment inside. It's a healthy environment for its occupants. It is a better built outcome. City Hall is connected onto our downtown district energy system. What's on the roof of City Hall is a very hard to find but beautiful meeting room, if you can figure that last elevator to get up there. It's a wonderful space, however, surrounded by glass and mirrors. Why? Because it's not consumed with a bunch of classic and legacy mechanical systems on the roof. This is where you have the opportunity to enable better outcomes when you start taking a look towards greener, more innovative technology. The telecom business was founded in 2015. And the telecom organization really exists with the purposes we are the absolute experts at building networks. And we build networks through deploying fiber optics. We build networks through deploying critical wireless systems. And we partner, whether we build it ourselves or we partner to make the best effect of all investments that are happening with broadband in the community. And that's with all major providers of last mile. We're not competitive, we augment. We really strive to make the networks and the internet that exists in Hamilton more accessible to the businesses and the residents, and for strategic outcomes, which we'll talk a little bit more as we get further into the presentation. And it's this focus that we have on connecting businesses to the customers or the residents to the services that they depend on is where our telecom business gets very close connection and alignment to the priorities of this council. And maybe just a brief story about how the telecom business came to exist, because maybe it's a model about adopting future opportunity as it came through an innovative idea inside a city department, the IT group. And once upon a time, through the hydro utility, many years ago, Hamilton had a very extensive fiber optic network across the entire community. Long story short, it had sold. Many years go by and the IT department is like, something is lost, something is missing. We don't feel the focus that we once had, we don't have the attentiveness, we have escalating costs, and our service experience is declining. And they established a pilot program to sit there and say, how do we get back to what we once had, which was a local provider that was focused on better outcomes for the city of Hamilton. And it was through that pilot that was started through the IT department that gave rise to a small little fiber network downtown Hamilton that then had some key measures, and the report come back, and that's ultimately what gave the incorporation of the telecom business, which has now grown to be a leading provider across the MUSH sector and other key anchor institutions throughout Hamilton, and in delivering those greater outcomes. The organization today is 220 customers and growing. We have strong presence in what we refer to as the MUSH sector. I don't know why it gets the acronym as MUSH, but it's government, it's essential services, it's healthcare, it's education, it's mission critical. It's really connected back to these anchor institutions that provide huge benefit to the residents and the businesses in our community. We have a strong presence in Hamilton and in the surrounding area. And we service many of Hamilton's anchor institutions with energy, with telecommunications, and some that we like to call the super customer is where we actually provide both energy and data telecommunications together. And that's a growing segment that we have a vision to continue to expand. With one of the opportunities that we have to expand, that is some of the excitement that we're seeing originate within the community. And some of that, and just one example, is looking at the downtown redevelopment. It's exciting. And it's exciting to be engaged with those on the other side of the negotiating, like with the precinct group and PJ. He has a vision. With OVG, and we get to deal with Tim Lewicki. He's very passionate about bringing entertainment and making Hamilton an epicenter of world-class entertainment. We provide energy and telecommunications as key enablers to those business strategies. And it's awesome to see their excitement and their vision and passion about what the transformation of Hamilton looks like. The organization takes we take a triple bottom line approach to how do we generate shareholder value. It's important that we sustain our operations financially independent from the City of Hamilton, but we look with a wider lens towards how do we generate value? What can we do of greater purpose? We wake up every day thinking about how do we differentiate Hamilton and how do we deliver better outcome in Hamilton through addressing climate and helping the community navigate the opportunities and the challenges that it faces through mass digitization. And we do this through the lens of where do we provide an economic benefit, where do we provide a social return to the community where we value an outcome or a deliverable more so than its pure business case, more so than its pure financial terms. And there's a lot of examples that we've done like that with community Wi-Fi, working with Community Housing Hamilton, where we've worked to help enable pop-up events like art crawls or the Liquid Arts Festival or things that we've done with the Grey Cup as an example. And then where do we have the opportunity to be a leader and a huge advocate to drive positive sustainability and environmental change in the community? This is how we take a look at our organization about how do we take a look forward about generating value to the shareholder. And ultimately that means the residences and the businesses within Hamilton. We've had a solid track record of earnings growth through our previous investment cycles. And this is despite, some certain economic challenges that were brought in through the COVID pandemic. And then now that we're also seeing, an era of higher costs brought on by interest rates. And it really goes to show the breadth and the diversification that we actually have in the organization, that people are finding value in the services that we provide and the business and the values that we bring forth to the community. One thing I want to say, it's important to note that of the composition of our revenues, 65% of them occur completely independent and discrete from the City of Hamilton directly. There is our broader commercial activity that we go off in the market with. We may have opportunities to innovate locally, have a springboard by working collaboratively through solving a problem, maybe directly with an anchor institution or the City of Hamilton. But then we take a look at that and say, where is there greater purpose now for us to take this and monetize it further afield? And the benefit of what that does is in the long run, it becomes a source to draw non-levy based returns into the community from our commercial operations. And that springboard of innovation really happens collaboratively amongst ourselves in this room. The telecom business is very much aligned with the key priorities of delivering responsiveness and really and the enabler of safe and thriving communities. And rather than me, I'll take a little break on talking. We made a little vignette that the team came and wanted to talk and describe on how they were and how the organization was engaged when we had found out that the City of Hamilton had experienced a cyber event. By no means our first client to experience a cyber event. And we had some experience and we had some capabilities and in the business that we were able to bring to help the community, and we're still helping the community today. And I figure I'll leave it to my colleagues to tell the story. Hopefully the audio works. Okay, how do I play it? Oh. It was all going so well until now. How do I play my video? No, it is a video. Can I play from current slide? I see it says right there, video, right? Oh, darn it. Yeah, would it be all right if I bring up another? Actually, I have the video on a file. I really would like to share it if I can. If you can just give me one quick minute, and I'd just like to bring up a. So I'm going to stop sharing this just for 1 minute. Sorry, what am I doing here? Thank you for your help here as your. Okay, so let me, no matter how much you practice this out of band, when you're in the moment, it's just, okay. Now, will I need to turn up sound on this, or? Can I just share my screen, maybe? Right here. You will hear sound? Okay. You promise we're going to hear sound?
Initial reaction when I heard about the cyber is what can we do as an organization?
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that.
My initial reaction when I heard about the cyber attack on the city of Hamilton is my heart sank, and is what can we do as an organization to step up and help?
We're a small but mighty team. There's a lot of us that can do a lot of different things. When you have a certain amount of resources that you're working with, it's in essence, how do you pull one lever while not letting the stack fall?
They would request from us what they needed and tell us what priority they needed it in. We internally set up a channel where we would keep it open all the time, and we could all communicate openly like we were all in the same room together.
We had all hands on deck from HCE. We had the majority of our telecom division out installing new equipment, activating services. Everyone would call into me. I would activate the equipment that the site that they're at. So we were able to get in, get them the basic connectivity that they needed to be able to connect to these services, and we got them back up and running. A lot of them on the same day that we were on site.
It could happen to anyone. It's just a matter of how you're prepared to lessen the effect. And if it happens, what are you doing about it? One of the plus points that we have, we are small enough to change our course very quickly to adapt to anyone's need. So we were able to kind of push the boundaries and get things done faster.
One of the major outcomes of this incident is to bring the awareness about the security and the importance of it, how much that can affect the community life. I know that it's been affected just for the city, but it also affected the residents. One of the lessons that we learned that working in a team, we can make a very big difference very fast.
HCE has been a longtime partner of the city, and we work very closely with them on various issues. It was great to have them available to us as we were unraveling the pieces associated with this cyber attack. The leadership immediately had reached out to offer any additional assistance. We were able to leverage their services to ensure resiliency of some of our connectivity. They were also able to troubleshoot with us and provide alternative means of connectivity. And we continue to explore other opportunities to enhance our overall digital infrastructure with the support of HCE. Some of the solutions that HCE helped us implement had a larger impact to the community because it allowed the city to continue to deliver the critical services that our citizens and residents expected, and that was greatly facilitated by the work that HCE helped us support.
Looking towards the future, HCE will continue to build upon the knowledge and experience we've gained. We will work alongside the City of Hamilton, other municipalities, and provider of critical infrastructure to protect, secure, and restore the digital technology that our communities rely upon.
And just for, let me turn my volume back down. Just for some context, we rebuilt a complete wide area network for fire across 34 sites in 2 days. And that was critically important to help restore digital capabilities. And, classically that is things that take months to do. And the team got engaged, and within 48 hours, we were actively out on site. We worked very closely with the long-term care facilities. Digital technology is so critically important in the delivery of long-term care to try and minimize any interruption. And, onwards and onwards, working with transits and traffic, and we continue to do. And I figure there's no better way to tell the story than to let the team share their experiences and their message. And so as we switch gears just for 1 minute, and now looking at the energy side of the house, and then as we wrap up, we're going to talk about how these two disparate capabilities come together and unite in enabling that transformation, on how we look about generating shareholder value from an environmental perspective. What I hope we had shown on the telecommunication side is how we enable and how we help generate shareholder value from a social perspective in responsiveness, accessibility, and transparency of services. Is what are we doing from the environmental benefits? And last year, we supported 3 delegations, that were all towards enhancing the city's sustainability and environmental initiatives. We were lead participants and sponsors on the Pivot Clean Technology Conference that brought many thought leaders from all around Southern Ontario into Hamilton to talk about strategies to invest to mitigate climate change. And, we hosted many thought leadership events. We are continually working to decarbonize our business. And the investments that we've made in our business have very much been towards sustainability and renewable investments. And there's some research and thought leadership I'd like to talk about right now that we're doing, again, that really harkens on the advantage of Hamilton, that we were recognized, and we had won a sustainability award with this year at the Hamilton Gives Awards hosted by the local Chamber of Commerce, of which there was another video, small little vignette that I have to share. I'd like to play here. You just give me 1 second. I think I have mastered how to do this. Sorry about that. It was much more slick when everything just worked right inside the PowerPoint presentation. My apologies. Oh, how do I unmute here again? How do I unmute this? What word is it?
Hi, I'm Jeff Cowan, President and CEO of Hamilton Community Enterprises. We are a technology company that provides energy and telecommunication services to a wide range of public and private sector customers. We are passionate about reducing greenhouse gas emissions and making our city a better place to live, grow, and prosper. We've embraced a 3Cs pathway to achieving net zero heating in Hamilton, as building heating is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in our communities. The pathway begins with conservation, followed by connecting to thermal networks and other low-carbon technologies, and finally converting to renewable energy sources such as the tremendous renewable resource of waste heat from Hamilton's industrial bayfront. I'd like to thank the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce for recognizing HCE for this award, and all the team members at HCE for making this possible.
So I would like to talk about where we see the Hamilton Advantage in action. And what I mean about the Hamilton Advantage is I mean something that is so unique to our community that it's almost impossible for another city to replicate it. And I'd like to talk about one opportunity that we see and that we are working through studying. And we're excited about issuing a report later this year that talks about the applicability of what we see as a generational infrastructure investment, which is to harness the residual waste heat that comes from the industrial bayfront. I can't tell you how much heat just gets dissipated into the atmosphere from the industrial bayfront. And what I'm talking about low-grade heat, because I also want to recognize that the industrials are great at harnessing the energy that they generate and that maybe they expel to put back into the system today. They're very good at that. but there's a grade of heat that is considered very low utility that's absolutely fantastic for decarbonizing buildings. It's 100 degrees Celsius and lower. And there is a Niagara Falls of this energy band that gets dissipated into the atmosphere today and serves no utility. There is no purpose for it today. We see an opportunity to harness that heat as a strategy as the community looks towards intensification, supporting, the vision and the leadership that's being shown throughout this council and staff, to harness this heat as an alternative source to using fossil fuels or even placing a high demand on the electricity grid. And when I say there's a Niagara Falls of heat, if you were to think of the new developments on King William, those 30-story towers on King William, there is enough residual heat in this low-grade temperature band that could heat 320 of those type of developments. That is immense, okay? That is maybe even more than the city of Hamilton could use, where there's so much we could probably share it with neighboring communities as well too, as they're also going down this pathway and quest to intensify and decarbonize. And this study, as we're looking at it, this is a generational opportunity. This is a long term, this is a big picture, this is a big, hairy, audacious goal type of dream. And I'm going to talk next about there are some things that we can do in the short term as we're working towards a long-term initiative like this. But this is something that's unique to Hamilton. A lot of neighboring jurisdictions don't have this story because they don't have this long-serving industrial route. A lot of communities don't have that residual energy so close to the community where they can use and benefit from it. It's a decarbonization strategy. It's an electrical conservation strategy. It's a building retrofit strategy. Okay, when we talk about building retrofits, that might be the stock that's being built today is tomorrow's decarbonization challenge. And there's a lot of new stock that's happening around the downtown core of Hamilton that it just has gone business as usual for many reasons that we're looking towards saying, how does it decarbonize tomorrow? And as long as it's an industrial policy, and one of the things, again, back towards the Hamilton advantage, is it's a circular economy initiative. We're talking about gaining benefit from waste. And there's a monetary benefit for them. We're not asking for the stuff for free. We're asking about paying a fair market rate for it. So that helps their businesses. And it makes them more competitive on a global basis, is that it can show that there's a carbon offset that they're getting from their operations. That as procurement policies globally start to evolve, it puts them in a competitive situation. And as well as we see it as an energy resiliency and a security and an affordability strategy as well too. And the need for resiliency is more important than ever. If you take the story that we talked about regarding the initial heat wave we had of the summer. The grid today in Ontario, it peaks in the summer. And it peaks in the summer predominantly because of cooling, okay? Brian talked about the electrification of vehicles, and we talked about the electrification of the transit fleet. Well, one of the greatest challenges that we're going to see on the grid is actually the electrification of heating, because there's very, very few options when it's 30 below zero outside other than consistently, reliably having to heat your premise. Otherwise, you're talking about a public safety matter, you're talking about people's well-being and productivity and health and wellness. Building heating is a larger challenge to electrify than vehicles are going to be. And this is where we see this as a much more holistic approach. And this is where, we, again, term it as the Hamilton advantage because it's so unique to our community. And this is where we see, however, it's a long-term infrastructure play. It's going to be a big dollar infrastructure play. I think you would have seen on the previous slide, initial estimates right now. It's a successful business case looking at roughly around a $300 million size investment. It seems onerous, but the reality is these kind of strategies are deployed all around the world. We're actually not talking about something that is high risk. You can see many, many, many jurisdictions around the world that have deployed these strategies to great effect. We're trying to figure out how do we localize it and gain benefit in our community. But that's a long-term goal. But we're also looking and says, what can we do today? What can we do tomorrow? How can we help push the sustainability objectives of Hamilton forward? And this is where, to harken back to what we talk about, the 3 Cs pathway. And this is where we start to unite the digital capabilities of the business and the energy capabilities of the business. This is where we start looking towards and start with the concepts of conservation. There is a lot of opportunity in and around conservation. And a lot of opportunity in and around conservation comes with things that are relatively low risk. And what that is, it's simply operating the building automation system much more intelligent, more aware of the occupants, and more aware of the state of the mechanical systems in the building. It seems like it's common sense, but most people's homes that have a Nest or an Ecobee thermostat are probably more sophisticated from a PAS perspective than many of the large multi-dwelling and many of the institutional premises that we're in. There are big gains to be made here, and these aren't things that take generations to do. These are things that can be deployed quickly. I think we've shown in response to the cyber event, the organization can deploy digital pretty quickly. And there's the same principles that we can take a look at as we start talking about things about smart buildings, as we start taking a look at things like IoT and bringing AI into the equation. There are immediate benefits that we can gain that are relatively cost effective and they're low risk. You'll know fast if it works, and if it didn't achieve the KPIs you set, then you can move on to the next endeavor. That's a little different than a retrofit. A retrofit is something that's a little bit more complex. It's a longer lead. Generally, there's a higher upfront cost, and the outcome at the end is a little less known. This is why we think conservation around digital is a great place to start. And the reality is as Canadians, we waste a lot of the energy that we consume. And so this is where we think there's a great opportunity to start. And maybe there's an opportunity to start by just taking a look at our own assets and our own investments that we have direct control over. Then what we see is after you get the facilities operating as optimally as they can, then you start looking at connecting them to new technologies. Then you start looking about connecting them into new renewable sources, maybe geo-exchange, maybe solar. Maybe you connect them onto a district heating infrastructure. And then the final step of that is then you start looking at absolutely converting the fuel source and then looking at eliminating the use of fossil fuels in the long term. And this is the strategy that we baked inside of our business. And this is where we really see and believe we bring the Hamilton advantage into action. And just in conclusion, the discussion that we had today was really centered around building upon our collective historical investments. And it's grounded in embracing the industrial and the culture of the city being ambitious in its industrial background. And it's really, I feel, well aligned and supported by the leadership, of across the community and the passion that we see within the city. These are the enablers, and we believe that HC is very uniquely positioned, given our core capabilities and competencies, really to be this community-centric energy and data leader that really can help drive Hamilton into a sustainable, resilient, and a secure future. And with that, ends the presentation.
Thank you, Jeff. I clearly learned a lot from this. I also sit on the board, so I might have already seen this presentation too. Speakers list is open. I recognize Councillor Nan first, and then I think Councillor McMeekin wanted to be on that speakers list. So Councillor Nan, please.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you so much for the presentation and overview. Really appreciating the responsiveness in terms of what HCE is up to today, but also, really moving towards thinking through with excellence where we can be as a collective city moving forward. And I just wanted to pick up on the slide piece around the decarb in the industrial sector and working off of those lower energy or lower threshold temperature rates. Is it similar through you to some of the work that FCM's been highlighting that the city of Prince George has been doing, I think, for a couple of decades now, where they're heating in the winter, which is a challenge because they dip down significantly in the winter months. Their heating energy comes primarily from their industrial base. So the municipality itself has been working with industry to use that energy to keep those costs down in the winter. So is that that kind of where we're moving towards in terms of this strategy, and appreciating that it would address other energy needs beyond that as well.
Through the chair to councillor. Yeah, very much. That's just, I wasn't directly familiar with Prince George, but what you're talking about is absolutely the direct principles and what we're referring to in the idea of residual heat capture for the purposes of reuse and reducing our needs on fossil fuels, or to use electricity for a higher value utility than just building heating. There is some leadership that we see coming out of Europe, and certainly up in Scandinavia. There's a town in Sweden, Helsingborg, that has a chemical processing plant, Orsenkraft, I believe is what they're referred to. And that plant has been operating in that community for 40 years in what is not considered a low-cost operating jurisdiction, okay? But they have a very extensive heating infrastructure that extends throughout that community. It extends for 75 kilometers outside of that community, serving residences in what you would see as classic subdivisions, high density. It's a very extensive network. You know, we get, sometimes here, I think we get scared if we need to build a pipe across one right-of-way, regardless, 75 kilometers in size. But one of the reasons why that operations has principally stayed in Helsingborg is because of the economic benefit that they receive from providing that residual heat into that system. This is not a moonshot idea. This is not something that we're pioneering here. Where the innovation is coming from now is trying to take this principle and adapt it into our local market and getting support. And one thing just to note, we have support from private and public interest in the study, from the key anchor institutions to the suppliers of the heat to where the demand would be, and from many levels of government. So we're very optimistic at this time frame that this could be a strategy that will work well in our community.
Thank you for that. And just one supplemental follow-up. So FCM's Green Green Municipal Fund was listed on that slide. So if you could just break down, what is the partnership right now with the fund? Is it to fund some of the research pieces that you're speaking to, or is it around plan development?
Through the chair, it's predominantly in support of the study, the research that we're doing right now into the technical and the economic viability of a large-scale heat capture and distribution infrastructure in Hamilton.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Up now is Councillor McMeekin, and on deck is Councillor Kassar, followed by Councillor Tattison. Councillor McMeekin, please.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks so much. What you're describing is exciting. It's visionary. It can't happen fast enough. So that's my question. Assuming we're moving along the shared sense of purpose continuum with other partners and levels of government, what can we as a Horseshoe City Council do? What access to resources, adaptive resources do you need? How can we make this happen tomorrow?
Through the chair, very recently we're seeing a lot of leadership. We're starting to see policy. We're starting to see drive towards the development of standards, strategies that are supporting intensification. These kind of things that we're starting to see happen now are ingredients that hugely support innovative outcomes like this. And that is something that we're certainly starting to see to a greater effect more in this term than we have historically. I feel in the immediate term, one of the things that we would want to ensure is that as a green building standards coming to fruition is that we don't isolate the current district energy investment just because of its initial age. It does serve the community good purpose, I would say, and it's a huge enabler and connection point to benefit from these carbon-free energy sources. And so we would want to make sure that there are things that we would do that inadvertently don't become punitive to the current innovation that we have in the community.
Are there incentives that we need to be thinking about as we move to green energy standards? Yeah, I know it's one of, you used to have to dabble in the building code, how difficult it was to get sometimes the development industry on site, although I think that's beginning to change. I think they realize now that money does grow on trees. If you can keep it green, keen and green, that adds value to the product. We're getting into things like storage of energy. Are you having any conversations with anybody about incentivizing some of this strategic development?
Through the chair, that is a part of the analysis that we're doing in the study to see where there is opportunities for other levels of government and where innovative sources of capital can come in play to help enable an infrastructure like this. But the business case is taking this strategic view where we recognize people are stretched, and once upon a time for the early adopters, there might have been this concept of people willing to pay a green premium. But the reality is, if you want this to happen at scale and have meaningful impact in the community, is it has to be relative and cost competitive to what is currently available in the marketplace. And one of the benefits that we're starting to see with more adoption of renewables and a greener building development happening around the community is that the costs are starting to come down, where they're starting to become close to parity with business as usual. And then that's positive. And I think as you start seeing more and more momentum and more development embrace this, and those becoming more familiar with the outcome because they've now gone through it, we're starting to see fewer of those barriers exist. But whenever there can be a little bit of help and support in that direction, providers like us are always more than happy to take it. But I think we do believe principally is that at the end of the day is that we want this to be competitive with the market.
Well, it has to be competitive, and sometimes you need to incent that pilot initially, and if there's something we can do to make that happen, you'll let us know, won't you? Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Up now is Councillor Kassar, followed by Councillor Taddison, please. Councillor Kassar.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Wang. And through you, really enlightening presentation. I think it's very clear the value that HCE provides to Hamilton and the unique opportunities that you touched on. Similar to Councillor McMeekin's first question, just of what we can do now, and you talked about conservation through digitization of building automation systems. Could you just drill down next level into that and talk to what needs to happen and what the opportunities are and how we can get moving on that? Because my understanding, having attended the Pivot Conference last year, 25-30% opportunity in cost savings and energy reduction. So if you could elaborate on that and confirm maybe what I heard.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Sometimes challenge breeds opportunity, and I'll just take maybe the outcome from the cyber event. The outcome from the cyber event is going to cause us to take a look at all the digital infrastructure that we have across all the properties within the city of Hamilton. And it will be taking a look at the things that connect computers, the things that connect these devices, but it also has an opportunity to have an expanded scope. And as a part of that, we can take a look at that digital refresh to sit there and say, what is the opportunity now to incorporate the needs of facilities and buildings into that new investment cycle that we see as a key enabler towards how do we help enable smart platforms and smart technology to make better control decisions of the premise. And that ultimately leads to healthier environments. It leads to better workspaces that encourage people to want to come into and collaborate. And so where it could start, and maybe very similar to how telecom had its footings, is through a pilot. Is there a pilot that we could take a look at, and whereby we could look at deploying, set some criteria, and set some time frame around it to then measure and says, okay, what was the outcome? And if the outcome of that pilot was positive, then from there we could take a look at saying, what is the applicability across the mass of the facilities that the city of Hamilton has within its ownership. And I would love to say that that's all just within my vision, but there's a lot of great talk even happening amongst various stakeholders within the city proper, within the facilities group, that also share a same vision about looking at classically what may be two completely different layers of responsibility. One that you would see classically in the IT and the digital and the computer room, and then you have facilities and the digitization that's happening with our facilities, and starting to take a look at actually having more collaboration between those two units. In saying that, where we have core expertise is in that master technology integrator side, about how do we bring this together and make it simple, right? Make it simple for the city to be able to consume and then scale it. And so I think where we could take a look at starting would be around establishing a pilot.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, and would be fully supportive of hearing more about that and seeing that happen, and also really looking forward to the energy harvesting initiative study in Q4, as you mentioned. So those are all my questions. Thank you.
I'm next.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Councillor Cassar. Councillor Taddison, please. And just a note to rest of shareholders, if you are online, please turn on your cameras. We are currently at 8, so we need quorum for 9 to make decisions. So please ensure that your cameras are on. Thank you. Councillor Taddison, please.
Hey, thanks for the presentation today. Really appreciated the tour as well, about a month back. I wanted to kind of go back to something that we talked about then. Again, it's exciting, as Councillor Meekan, it can't happen fast enough. Councillor Cassar, what can we do now? I kind of want to talk about a more specific situation, and not so much about what can we do now, but let's look at a situation where we had the McMaster University building a grad facility, just right inside our core here. And I kind of want to find out, basically, how come we're not hooked up to that? What did we not do? How can the city better help you? And look at that as an analysis and kind of like, learn that for the next time coming around, okay?
Through the chair, that breaks my heart as well. It was before my tenure in that role, unfortunately. We talk about the McMaster building. We can also look at the federal building further down Bay Street, and it's also not on the system. And the pipes are basically in the basement, and you ask why did that end up happening? And again, I think looking towards a progressive or a development standard that has an expectation under a better outcome would encourage those types of connections to occur. And then I would say also over time, I believe as a business is that we've become far more sophisticated in how do we commercialize those type of connections as well, to try and think of it through the lens of the developer, and how do we work to try and address and mitigate where they would see some of their concerns. And I think the organization has matured from those days to help address that as well too. So it's a bit twofold. A bit of it is the engagement from our organization, and a bit of it is supportive standards and policies as well.
And so those supportive policies, are they generated municipally, or are they provincial, federal? Like, where do you need that support? Is it from us here?
The green building standard would be the initial huge step forward that would happen locally. That is something that would happen in and around the council chamber.
Okay, so I guess we're looking for kind of a change to our industrial policy here at the city, correct?
A building standard for multi-dwelling residential would be a great first start.
Thanks for highlighting that. No more questions.
Thank you. Doing another call out for any first-time speakers or questions to our presentation. Okay, seeing none. Thank you to HCE, to your team, for all of the work you've done in the last 4 or 5 months. Honestly, the cybersecurity feels like a yesteryear type of thing, but it's clearly a multi-year sort of process. So thank you to you and your team. Also, congratulations on your Hamilton Gives Award. It is absolutely warranted, so thank you very much.
Thank you. And if I can just say one last thing, because I left the podium last year forgetting to thank my staff and everybody within the organization. It's a lot easier to get up here and talk about the business when you're supported by such a great group of people. And I also appreciate the support from the board as well. I think there's a lot of great collaboration across the organization, so thank you.
So just for those that are online, you can't see in the gallery, but we do have most of senior leadership team from HCE that's here in the gallery. So thank you again for being here. May I now have a mover and a seconder to receive this presentation, please? Councillor McMeekin, Councillor Kassar. And since we have that, may I have the vote, please? And the vote is up. Councillor Nan is a yes. And that vote carries 11-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff. You're welcome to take your seat again. On to number 6, which is shareholder resolutions. Shareholders, we have 3 resolutions to look at. It is the audited consolidated financial statements year-end December 31, 2023, the appointment and remuneration of auditor, and then the directors of the corporation. May I please have a mover and a seconder to put the shareholder resolutions on the floor, please? Councillor Pauls, Councillor Spatafora. Any discussion on these resolutions? Okay, seeing none, may I have the vote, please? Vote is up. And Councillor Nan's a yes. And that vote carries 11-0. Thank you. Moving on to the last item, which is adjournment. May I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn this meeting? Councillor Pauls, Councillor Tattison. And may I have the vote, please? Councillor Nan's a yes. Vote is up. And that vote carries 11-0. Thank you to all of shareholders for attending. Thank you to staff. Thank you for HCE. Thank you to GM Zagaric and Can. Have a great rest of your day.